with our meeting tonight. Hi, I'm Paul Samaras. I'm a principal planner here with the City of El Segundo. I'm the city's project manager for the Downtown Specific Plan Update project. Thank you for coming and showing interest in the Downtown Specific Plan project. We appreciate you coming in and spending your time with us. We're going to do a very short presentation for you tonight, and I'm going to introduce a couple people here in a second. And then we hope to get some input from you, and that'll help us with the environmental review process, okay? So the main purpose of the meeting today is to kind of go over the environmental review process related to the Downtown Specific Plan, and then get your input on what potential environmental impacts we should study in detail in the environmental impact report that we're working on. I just wanted to mention that we have some comment cards, and we'll be asking you to, if you have comments tonight, to write down your comments and provide them to us anytime during the meeting. But there's other ways to provide comments on this as well if you are not ready to do that tonight. Great. So with that, I just want to introduce a few people on staff and our consultant. Our planning manager, Eduardo Schornborn, is here joining us. Our Director of Community Development, Michael Allen, and our consultant, Mike Feiner, who's a principal with Eco Tierra, the environmental consulting firm, helping us with the environmental impact report, is here. So I'll hand it off to Craig. He's going to give you a very brief presentation. Feel free to ask us questions about the process and the environmental impact report. And after that, we'll be happy to have your input, okay? All right, Craig, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming out. This is an important part of the process for those of us who are preparing the environmental impact report. The more information that we can have from the more people who actually know what the conditions are in the local area, it's very helpful to us. As Paul said, I'm Craig Feiner. I'm principal with Eco Tierra Consulting. We are part of the team that is developing the Downtown Specific Plan update. We are specifically doing the environmental impact report. That's what we do. And so, let me move on here. As Paul mentioned, the purpose of the scoping meeting is to obtain input on topics and issues that should be discussed in the EIR, as well as conditions. If somebody's aware of this stop sign has a particular problem, love to hear that kind of stuff. So as Paul said, also, we really need, if you want to submit comments for the record, we would need those in writing, just to make sure we've got everything clear and accurate. Give you a little bit of information on the Downtown Specific Plan update. This slide shows the boundaries of the specific plan update. It's basically the same boundary as the existing Downtown Specific Plan, with the exception of the one area up at the top, which is outlined in purple. That is a new area that's going to be added to the Downtown Specific Plan area. It's down by Grand Avenue, just southeast of the City Hall here, Civic Center. The planning firm, RM, who's preparing the Downtown Specific Plan, they've been working on this for quite a while now. And they've split this area up into 4 districts: Main Street, Richmond Street, Grand Avenue, and Civic Center. And they're going to be developing policies, development standards, lots of and potential regulations to guide the development of the area in the future. This is what the plan is going to be designed to accommodate. This is a projection of how much development might occur in downtown over the next 17 years. And these are the figures, these are the uses and the square footages that we will be using in our environmental impact report. And we'll develop analysis based upon that. The plan also includes parking structures and transportation improvements and sidewalks and mobilities and things like that. But one of the big issues would be potential parking structures. And so we just wanted to point out that those are one of the few things that have been identified with specific locations inside the plan. And Richmond Street and City Hall are the areas for potential above-ground parking structures. As was mentioned, the purpose of the scoping meeting is to solicit input on the issues and that should be addressed in the EIR. The community feels should be addressed in the EIR. The ones that have been identified for analysis already, and they were in this initial study that the city published back in January. So aesthetics, air quality, cultural resources, energy, greenhouse gas emissions, hazards and hazardous materials, land use and planning, noise, paleontological resources, population housing, public services, recreation, transportation, tribal cultural resources, and utilities and service systems. And this is basically almost the entire list of the issues on the CEQA checklist. The ones that we determine would not have the potential for significant impact are things like agricultural resources, biological resources, mineral resources, hydrology, water quality, and wildfire. So the CEQA process, this board over here kind of gives an overview of the CEQA process and the various steps involved. The city published a notice of preparation, or NOP, on January 12th, and that's the notice that basically kicks off the CEQA review process. There's a 30-day comment period associated with that. That runs through February 13th. That's followed by the draft EIR, which is currently in preparation. We expect to be able to release the draft EIR for public comment in spring, summer timeframe. At this point, there's a lot of moving pieces still, and so we're trying to give just ballpark estimates of the timeframes that we expect some of these milestones to happen. Once the public comment period is 45 days. Once that closes, we prepare a final EIR, and then that gets submitted to the Planning Commission and the City Council for approval, certification, and approval of the plan. Through public hearings, those would happen late summer, fall timeframe. Specific plan process has been going on for a while. That was started back in 2021. There have been a number of workshops and efforts to obtain input from the community on the substance of the specific plan. Public workshop in June of 2022, a community survey, July 22, a planning commission study session in November 2022. And with all of that information that they've been gathering over this process, the draft specific plan is in preparation and should be available for community to review around April. So just wanted to point out, there are many, many, many opportunities for public input and public comment on the project and on the environmental impact report. As I mentioned, the NOP, that's a 30-day period for comments. The intention there is to focus them on what should be studied in the EIR. We don't have answers at this point. The draft specific plan, obviously, that's been a process of information feedback, and that's been going on. That will just continue through the environmental review process and the approvals. Draft EIR has a 45-day statutory comment period required. And then the City Planning Commission and the City Council will hold public hearings as part of their approval actions. So as mentioned, we have comment cards if anybody wants to submit comments for the record. Paul is also, you can also submit your comments to Paul by email. And I think we've seen quite a few of those so far, which is great. And then additional information on the downtown specific plan is available at the website, www.elsegundo.org/downtown update. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening, and we're available to answer any questions that you might have.
Again, I just want to reiterate that you can feel free to email me with any comments, whether they are on the EIR or your thoughts on the specific plan itself. We are compiling all those comments and we're taking them into consideration as we're drafting policies and regulations for the downtown specific plan. So feel free to let us know if you have questions or what we just covered on the environmental review process. If you want to write comments tonight, feel free, and we can hand you some comment cards. And other than that, it's up to you if you want to do that, or if you want to just take your time to think about things and just email me or come back another time. If you have questions in the meantime, here I can turn on the mic and I can hand it to anybody. That way we can get your comments, heard and broadcast on TV as well.
Well, I think we.
Yeah, I'm just going to say a couple things too. So I'll just use the podium. So I just want to say, my name is Eduardo Schonborn. I'm planning manager here at City of El Segundo. So again, thank you for coming out here tonight. I think one of the important things to note, at least for tonight, like Craig has said, the whole purpose of this, gathering here is to kind of hear from an environmental standpoint what issues should be covered. As you saw, there was a lot of numbers up there with regards to kind of the build out, right? So that's the whole point of the environmental process, is to assume what the full build out potential could be and what the potential impacts from an environmental standpoint could result from maximizing that full potential build out. So that's really the what's being covered in the environmental report. I know a lot of people here are probably also interested in terms of what's being drafted up in the specific plan with regards to allowable uses and development standards. That's going on a separate track, but we'd still love to hear from you about that if you want to talk about that specifically. And again, you can always be informed as to what's going on via our city website. We have a dedicated webpage to this project, as Paul has mentioned. So feel free to go on there and submit your comments on there. If you want some additional background information, I know there's quite a few faces that are familiar to me from our last workshop that we had back in November. And I remember hearing from a couple of folks and actually being a little educated, if you will, about the habitat for the blue butterfly. So thank you for that. But anyways, so with respect to some of those design features that we can incorporate into the downtown specific plan, we've heard from you. We can always go and look at some past meetings just to get acquainted. For those of you who aren't really familiar with it, visit our webpage. And then as our consultant RRM puts together the nuts and bolts of the draft specific plan, that'll be put out there for public consumption and comment as well. But at least for purposes tonight, would love to hear from you, and if you have any, concerns about, from an environmental standpoint, what a potential full build-out of downtown could be upon traffic, upon, the list of these other issues that Craig went over. Please feel free to go ahead and submit your comments on that. So I just want to kind of clarify the EIR piece versus the downtown specific plan piece.
Hi, I'm Barbara Boland. I'm here in El Segundo. Usually I talk about the Blue Butterfly with Monica Davis. But as you're going through and things I've read about what might be happening, I don't know if it might pertain to this, but something about the amount of space that's going to be going to new building, office buildings, and along Main Street, that there might be buildings that are much higher, or I think 2 levels, I've read maybe 2 stories higher. I just wonder how that will affect the light coming onto our streets. I mean, I think that's kind of an environmental question.
Great. It would be great if you can email me or write that as well. Yes. Yeah, that is an area of concern when we're doing the environmental review. From what we know so far, along Main Street and Richmond Street, there's not going to be a big change in the height limits for buildings. Today, buildings can be 2 stories in the front part of the building, but in the rear can be even taller than that. And we plan to maintain more or less that same sort of height limitation. The proposed new part of the downtown may have sort of taller height limits along Grand Avenue, but most of the downtown area will not have a significant change in the height limits.
Do I need to stand? No? Okay. Emily Lane, resident, business owner. I have a parking, lane closure, that type of question. I think I've brought this up a couple times. One thing I'm trying to wrap around in my head is the city of El Segundo has done many upgrades, trials, plans to get more parking here along El Segundo Boulevard. There's a whole plan right now talking about Smoky Hollow, 1 lane to get more parking, and yet when you look at the downtown area right now, we have parking being taken up by business overflow. And so that's where, my concern is. I think we're spinning our wheels in certain places and working backwards in other places. We own a property right on Standard, and, with the current closure of part of the street, when trucks come in, it comes down to a 1-lane street, sidewalks closed because of things. It's just, I think that is my concern is, I just feel like we're not working as a city. We keep doing specific plans that are counter to the plan next door. I think, and when I look at some businesses are allowed a huge footprint, other businesses a smaller footprint in front of their buildings, that kind of consistency is what I would like to hear where we're going for, a standard in consistencies.
Thank you for that comment. Yeah, we'll take that into account. And hang on to that mic in case somebody else near you has another question. Thank you for your comment.
I don't really want the microphone to happen.
It's up to you.
I listened to the plan the last time in detail, and I live on the northeast corner of town, like almost, so for me to come downtown, the only way I really come is by vehicle. And I was listening to the parking structure ideas, which are great, but there's some safety issues with that, and there are significant expenses with the parking structures. And I don't know where the city has the money to do the parking structures. I also, because I have to drive, and I drive my kids to the high school, and then I go over here and over there, and I'm up and down Main Street a lot. So closing that down to one lane each way, seems like a bit of a stretch. And I know that El Segundo is known throughout the South Bay as the Mayberry in LA, and I would hate for it to lose that culture. We like the small window fronts and the 1950s feel of it. Everybody that you talk to, oh, Mayberry, oh, yeah, it's a great little town. I love that town. So I don't want the modernization to also change the character of our town and our intent to be different. There's nothing good with the reminiscence of old-fashioned value, qualities, aesthetics.
Okay, yeah, so parking structures, there's safety, financial feasibility issues. Doing work on the streets, reducing the lanes, has impacts, and also there's a concern about sort of maintaining the character of the downtown. Great, thank you.
Like, we've done one lane on Main Street 2 times in this town. Do you guys have those plans, studies? Like early 2000s they went down
Yeah.
one lane?
The last time this was done, it was a sort of a pilot project, a trial and error project back in the early 2000s. We're aware of those early tests.
Talk about, do you have how that went anywhere?
We do have some information. It's been 20 years, but we do have some information on those previous pilot projects. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi there. This is the first time I've been to one of these meetings. I'm kind of new to what's going on a little bit. But what I was wondering, to Monica's point, is there a plan to keep the integrity of our small town feel? Like maybe coming up with like a design committee for Main Street so that we're not having just boxed structures and somehow we keep kind of the, I don't know what you're going to say, but like the 1950s feel of what draws people to El Segundo. I sell real estate here in town. I think a lot of people, they come down our Main Street, they see our high school. This is what really draws them in. So we have a 3-story building here on Main Street that's probably one of the more unattractive structures. And I was just wondering if we have a plan to kind of work that in as far as,
Thank you for your comment. Yeah,
Yeah.
the existing specific plan does have some design guidelines, and there is what's called a design review process, although there's no design review committee specifically for that purpose. Our planning commission kind of serves that role on larger projects. But we are definitely considering or looking into those existing design standards, whether they need to be improved or what we can do to sort of improve on those. So thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I'm going to talk this time, so it'll be different. Hi, Mark Christian. I just had like general questions on the EIR process part, so not really related to the general specific plan or whatever. This is an update to the previous EIR. When was the last time it was done?
Well, the existing specific plan was adopted in late 2000, so
And there was an
23
EIR.
years ago.
And there was an EIR related to that?
Yes, at the
Did
time.
Eco Tierra do that one?
No.
Okay, so different company. Then my other question is, as you guys take this on, are there things that you would expect to have in this EIR that are different than the one, like materially different than the one you prepared last time? Or is it kind of pro forma? You take what we did before and,
Yeah, so basically, because that EIR is so old, this will be a brand-new standalone EIR. This will be all new analyses that are up to the current standards and regulations. I'm not sure what it's gonna come out and say.
Okay.
We're still working on that. But the idea of this is to be a thorough, standalone analysis of what's being
So this is
proposed.
a blank slate,
Yep.
top down, whatever cliche you want to throw in there.
Yep.
Just you're starting over from scratch.
Correct.
Okay. Are there like recent CEQA regulations that we think would have an impact that maybe didn't before that we expect to now when we get comments back, or?
That's a good question. Whoops. So, yeah, things are changing in our world constantly. One of the big changes that's happened since that previous EIR was done is the way transportation impacts are analyzed. And this is something that's been mandated by the state. And instead of looking at roadways and intersections, we're compelled to look at vehicle miles traveled, which is a regional metric. And the rationale behind it, makes sense, because if just doing it based upon intersections, congestion basically, encourages sprawl. The farther out projects have lower impacts when you look at it that way. But they have the bigger impacts when it comes to traffic generation, air quality, greenhouse gases. So kind of the state land use policy is trying to keep things concentrated in urban areas, and particularly in the vicinity of transit. So that'll be the approach in the transportation section, which might look a little bit different than you may have seen before. Other than that, we'll just obviously analyze against the most current regulations and techniques and methodologies, et cetera.
There are a couple newer issues
Well, that's true, yes.
that were required back in 2000, like greenhouse gas
Yeah,
and
right. And the one,
newer.
Okay.
wildfire being one. However, I don't think anybody considers this area to be a high wildfire hazard area, so.
It is one of the topics.
Yeah, I mean, in some areas it is a huge issue.
I mean, I saw paleontological stuff on there too. I wouldn't have expected that, but there it is. I guess my other question would be, and not to make this like an interview of Echo Tierra, but have you done one of these recently in the South Bay, like an EIR update for one of the other local communities?
Not in the South Bay, but in other jurisdictions in LA County.
Okay. Like,
Agoura Hills,
okay.
we just did a general plan update with them. We did do some documentation for the housing element, the city's housing element.
Okay.
That's recent. Yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, really, all this comes down to is all of this, the formal stuff is all when somebody buys a piece of property, what it is they can and cannot do. What the people in the city really want to know and see is when is it the city's going to get started and start making some changes to City Hall Plaza and things that people can actually see the changes that are being done by the city. Whether Sally Smith buys the property across the street and the changes that she makes to her property is up to her, and what it is that she can do according to the downtown specific plan is what she can do. The people that are living in the town, the residents, their thing is, what is it the city's going to do to make the changes to the roadways, to the sidewalks, to the City Hall Plaza, are they building these parking structures? What is it that we can see and touch and all of that? So that's what the residents are going to be wanting to know about the downtown specific plan. And when does it get started? Because I've lived here my whole life, and we hear about these downtown specific plans, and we hear about it again, and in another 20 years, and you don't really see a whole lot of changes. So you hear about the downtown specific plans, and I've been involved in it for many, many years. That's what the residents want to see, is they want to see the changes. So, the blue butterflies, they want to see something done with City Hall Plaza. They want to see the changes in the sidewalks. They want to see the beautification of the town. And, the EIR and all of that stuff, that's going according to what it is that, Sally Smith can do to her building and how high she can go and all of that. It's really what it is that the residents are going to see. And that's what people are going to be interested in.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Just wanted to let you know that the specific plan update will include chapters on private property development and regulations, but we'll also have a chapter on what they call the public realm, the public spaces, the streets, sidewalks, the civic center, and public improvements as well. And so those are things that we are looking into, and the draft specific plan will have some recommendations for those areas as well. And along with that, to your point about will things get done, there is going to be a chapter on implementation, studying feasibility and how we can go about accomplishing these goals. So just wanted to let you know about that. But your point is well taken, so.
Well, I think that was kind of mine. I saw on the timeline, it looked like in August, the council will be given a draft. Is that what I saw on the
Yeah,
PowerPoint?
in late summer or fall. Mhm.
And then in public input between then?
Yeah, we accept public input at any time on the specific plan. As Craig mentioned, we are working on a draft of the specific plan, all those regulations for the private properties and plans for the public spaces. We hope to have a draft available for the public to review and comment on in April.
And I would also just, highly recommend that if you haven't already done so, register your emails, and then we try to do a blast email to let you know and keep you informed. So when that draft document does, hit the streets, we'll send an email out, and that way you can take a look at it. It'll be in draft form, and again, like Paul said, we welcome, your input on it, and to your point about implementation, about certain improvements in the public right of way, comment on that and try to make it a better document.
I'm gonna put my plug in for the blue butterfly habitat again, because I think that when she was talking about the grounds, people want to see something look different. Landscaping, just even in the front of the building, is easy and not all that costly. And I think all the little, I want to say, parking planters up and down Main Street could have the right kind of habitat, and with the right habitat, it would cost less water and less maintenance. And, year-round greenery. It may not be floral, but it would be specific for Los Angeles Woods.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Anything else? Any other questions about the EIR process? Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's the right time, but what is the budget for this? I mean, is this not the right form for that?
Okay, there is a budget for this planning phase, for studying the environmental impacts and developing the downtown specific plan. But budgeting for future public improvements, that has not occurred yet. It will occur at a later time. Once we have a plan in place and we know what we hope to build, we will start to go into that process of, looking into costs and the design and so forth. So that will follow after the specific plan is adopted, later this year.
Does the Elstern plunge fall into this zoning area?
The plunge is just outside of the downtown specific plan area.
In the library?
The library is just outside, yes. The boundary is Mariposa Avenue. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll be here if you have other questions, just letting you know. Yeah, we'll hang out for a while, so, thank you for coming. Thank you for all your interest. As I mentioned earlier, we are drafting the downtown specific plan. We will release that in April to get to the public to review and comment, so, and then we will make improvements based on the input that we receive. Closer to the summer, we will have a draft environmental impact report ready for the public to review and comment on for a period of about 45 days. And then after that, we will complete a final EIR in the summer and then schedule public hearings before the Planning Commission and the City Council. So there's a few opportunities, specific meetings or dates where you can provide input, but feel free to contact me with any, questions or comments at any time.
How is the broader community, and there's like a dozen of us, how is the broader community brought into those different things? I know that, are you advertising in the paper about the meetings?
Yeah, we advertise in the paper. We advertise on the city website. We send mass emails to people who sign up to receive email updates on the various topics from the city. We send notes on our social media, city social media. And in some instances, we do direct mailing of, information to stakeholders as well. If you have other suggestions for us, we'd be happy to hear those as well. If you have other suggestions on how to reach the public or the community, for missing people, please let us know, and then we'll try to incorporate that in our outreach.
Just in terms of the process again, so those green boxes are places where you expect public input. So the last green shape there in a hologram. Not a square, but where that is. It's a quadrilateral. Quadrilateral, there you go. All those things, both those things. So there's planning commission and then the city council. So we have the planning commission meeting and like 200 people come in here and they like pack this place and they hate it. And then we have a city council meeting and then we pack this place and they hate it.
Mm-hmm.
If by the time we get to that last green box, are there still opportunities for there to be changes or for other things to, be tweaked or updated with respect to this piece?
Yes.
Is it a done deal by the time we get to the third green box?
Well, we hope to hear a lot from you, over the next couple of months on the draft specific plan once it is released. And we hope to reflect in the specific plan the input that we receive from you so that we don't get to the point where, you see something that you don't agree with. So I hope that partly answers your question. And then, public hearings are for the public to hear and comment. So if the Planning Commission hears information during the public hearings, including our reports and our studies, and they have their own concerns, they want us to make changes, then we will do that. It doesn't mean that something has to be approved the first time the Planning Commission meets to review it. So I hope that helps answer your question.
I noticed in the slides, one of the things that jumped out at me was accommodating 300 new housing?
Residential units, yes.
Where are those gonna go?
Most likely in the area along Grand Avenue near Standard and Eucalyptus, close to where the Rite Aid Center is and the Bank Center, those slightly larger properties. That is the primary area will that would occur.
This is just if a developer were to buy that property and redevelop that property.
That's correct. Yeah.
These are all ifs.
And I think it's also important to note, like, it's not like all 300 units would be concentrated there. Again, this is assuming build out of the entire downtown area. So
Yeah.
those 300 units could very well be, maybe a big majority might be there, but it assumes that they're gonna be kind of, district-wide or downtown. I mean, like, for example, right now, the specific plan does already allow for residential units. So I guess if you were to assume each property has a residential unit, and there's X number of properties within downtown, and you probably have easily like 300 properties already.
Yeah, so a little bit under 300.
Speaking, large scale here, or big picture here, but the point is that, yes, we do anticipate, that downtown could accommodate an additional 300 district-wide.
And are those low income? I know there's certain requirements to be low income housing, is that the intent?
No, that's not the intent that it would all be, but, we would like to, or not like to, but we would probably try to see if there could be a couple percentages available. And then again, it depends on what type of residential project, a developer comes in with. If someone comes in with condominiums, it's probably not gonna be a right fit for maybe for, certain moderate income type of units, but certainly not for very low, extremely low. But if someone comes in with rental type unit, that might open up the doors for, a wider gamut of buildings.
So let me ask you, does the city go to, once this plan goes into effect, does the city go to the owner of that Rite Aid property and say, hey, we'd like you to consider selling this property to a developer or residential use?
No, the city does not get into that type of advocacy role when it comes to it. Yeah, the city may set some rules in place for all property owners to sort of be aware of and consider, and then each property owner makes decisions on their own. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Were you looking for a different response? Okay.
If the city, contacts the property owners and says, that your property is a property that could be developed or, for residential use now, instead of leaving it as a retail,
Mm.
usage, it could be now used for residential.
Mm.
Because maybe, Bobby lives in Nevada and doesn't even pay attention to that property anymore.
Right.
And it's just been leased by Rite Aid for so many years and he's been happy with that. Now, all of a sudden, his property is, deemed, it could be residential and now could be worth maybe a lot more money.
Right.
There are a lot of properties, like that, people no longer live in the area. So I was just wondering if the city, let property owners know of the change in status.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just quickly address that, we hope Bobby in Nevada is paying attention. As part of this process, as Paul mentioned earlier, we do direct mailings when there's changes to specific properties. So like in this case, that property was not originally in the downtown specific plan. So we're contemplating absorbing that into the downtown specific plan. And so if Bobby lives in Nevada, we will be mailing to the legal address that the tax assessment gives us, which we have access to make sure that they have an opportunity to come back and tell us, we like that, we don't care, just show us the final product. We're hoping that the property owners are paying attention. I think to the earlier question about notification, Paul outlined all the different ways that we've exhausted. Some of it during a little bit of the height of the pandemic, there were several workshops that we tried in person and via online, where we notified thousands, because we exhausted all of the listservs that our communications department has, and not more than a dozen people showed up in person or online. We did an online survey that was extended for almost 2 months, I think, with several outreach efforts, and I think we had several hundred respondents.
Yeah, about 200. Mhm.
We had a booth out there.
Well, yeah, we had a farmer's market, a couple hundred people go to, but, you know, we've exhausted a lot of, that's why Paul mentioned it. If there's any other outreach efforts, if anybody, any conduits, we're happy to put it out there and push it out there.
Was because it was put in the flyer at the high school.
Yeah.
That was how I saw it. So I think the schools are an avenue to parents that are busy working,
Mhm.
a lot of time to, you know.
Yeah, well,
I don't have on the city website. I saw it in the high school.
I'm glad that worked because that, we did coordinate with the school district to send out flyers to the students.
And that's something we don't normally do, but we were trying to exhaust because we couldn't believe that nobody was showing up to at least half a dozen workshops that we were, you know, spanning, you know, trying to get either online or in person over the last 16 months that I've been here at least. And so we're hoping that the property owners are opening their mail. Sometimes you just can't get a hold of somebody, especially the absentee owners who live out of state. Because when we buy the property owner information from the county, all we get is a mailing address. We don't get their phone number. Occasionally, if they have a recent license with the city, we might be able to pull information from the water department and get some recent email or phone number, but frequently those are far outdated, and people just automate their payments and they don't think about it. And so we're hoping, and we'll exhaust every channel that we can to get property owners, you know, at least informed. Sorry, go ahead.
What about regular mail?
Yeah, we send things frequently. Well, actually, regular mail is probably the worst way, the least successful way of getting a hold of people, but we do it because by law we're required to. But most people see a city notice in the mail and they chuck it in the junk drawer.
I found the first one to be kind of complicated. First, where you have to kind of go on the computer and
Oh, yeah, the survey.
computerize
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It kind of, I think I did put something but didn't fill out how you were supposed to do it. The second one that Monica got from high school, that was very specific and clear and colorful, kind of got your attention.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we will try to use that again. And
And what about the Facebook groups that are in town? Those are very actively followed. So there's the parent network, the community network,
okay.
you know, even in what the native plant group in town is very active. So those are ways to communicate in today's.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we'll take all that into account and try to incorporate that if we can.
Oil post stuff on Facebook and try to get the word out about something. So, and people read it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Sir?
These public comments, I was a little confused at first because the SUPA, it's kind of geared towards that. I don't think I have very many comments on how the environmental stuff goes.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's fit, and you're gonna do the plan, and that's how it is. Is the public comment geared also toward asking questions about the planning of the downtown specific plan, or just the environmental?
Yes, you can feel free to send me an email on any topic. It doesn't have to be on the environmental review process. If you have a question about where we are in the process or the status, or if we release the downtown specific plan and you're reading through it and you don't understand something, feel free to reach out and ask us about that. Yeah. So any comments you have about the downtown specific plan, feel free to reach out to us. If it's unrelated to the EIR, that's not a problem. We just won't consider it, for the environmental review purposes. But if it's related to, what should we do in the downtown, where should we make improvements, yes, we will take that into account when we draft the specific plan. I hope that answers your question.
So, yeah, so I would just wrap up by saying, I guess the next steps now, I guess to just be on the lookout for is probably sometime in April-ish. We expect to have a draft specific plan out, and and that will take into account, you know, what you probably heard back in November, and the consultants were there, the planning commission had a really great, we had a great robust, discussion with them as well, as you all probably know, those who were in attendance, those who weren't. I encourage you to go to our city website and also go to TV and look for, you know, that November 10th meeting. That was a good one. And so, yeah, so that's the next step, and we'll put it out there. Again, we'll blast out an email so that everyone's aware that it's, you know, that it's out, that it's in draft form. Comment on it. I mean, go through it. And that's the whole purpose of this, because, you know, to this gentleman's point, I mean, we don't want to get to here and everyone hates it. You know, we're trying to avoid that. And so by the time we get to here, we'll have had at least April, May, June, July, 4 months of kind of hopefully getting some feedback from you all, you know, on the development standards, design standards of the specific plan itself.
Yeah, I think that getting the broader picture of what the community wants is essential. Because I'm not sure, I know some of the presentations are prerequisites for the single lane and parking, and I think there's going to be a lot of strong opinions. And I think you need to take all those, get as much of those, as many of those opinions incorporated into your plan before you proceed. And both ways, you know, it'll be a tough one.
Yeah, luckily, we don't have to make the tough decision, the planning commissioners and the city council, but our job is to paint the picture of all those different options and collate all of the feedback that's provided and provide that data to the decision makers.
As a resident, that's my concern. You're coming up with this great plan, but, you know, maybe there's 10 opinions that doesn't anywhere represent the real community. So how do you get all those voices out there?
But the problem being is, so I'm on the rec park commission, and the problem being, you know, we held workshop after workshop when we were doing the plan for Acacia Park. And we had some residents come, and we had probably 3 or 4 of those workshops. And, you know, we advertised all different ways. And then once the plan was in place and the park was going to move forward with the construction, then all the people came out of the woodwork, like, what do you mean you're taking the pool out? What do you mean this is gonna be done? And how come we weren't consulted? And we were like, we held all these workshops. We did all this. And that's where the people, where they constantly, they won't come to these meetings. They don't want to do this stuff until the plans are in place, and then they want to complain. And it doesn't matter how many different ways we advertise, the people won't come to these meetings. Like tonight when I walked up, there were all kinds of people sitting out there on the grass that are usually the complainers. They were sitting right out there. And they, for some reason, won't come and spend the time at these meetings, but yet they'll be the first ones to complain once the plan is in place. And we're going to run into the same problem, you know, and it's a real hard one to figure out how you go about getting them to voice their opinions before it's a done deal. And the same thing with the plunge, the same thing with the middle school gym, with all of that. It goes around and around, and it happens every single time. And like when you get to that final green box there, it's gonna be the same thing. And you're gonna have those complainers, and then they're gonna go, how come we didn't get any input? And you're like, you did. You had several opportunities to give your opinion. You didn't show up. And it will be the same 8-10 people showing up to do this, and then, you know, so it's a hard thing, and it gets to be very discouraging for the city employees or for the people sitting up there at the dais when you're trying to do this work and you're trying to make these plans, and then you have the people sitting there going, hey, how come you didn't ask us? And we're like, we did.
I understand because somebody else on the El Segundo Native Plant Group posted a copy of the letter that I sent to you and said, meeting so-and-so, please come, you know, and put it on the Parent Network, Community Network, and the Native Plant Network, and it's still Barbara and I. But I know that if you tear down Main Street and close it down to one lane each and change the parking, you're going to have people screaming because they like things the way it is, and people are resistant to change. And so, that's what I'm saying, I don't know how to do it better, but I just know that,
Just do what you're supposed to, and then you have to follow.
yeah.
So it's, you know, it's very discouraging, and you try to figure out how to change this and how to, but, you know, and every time, you know, these people will put these comments on Parents Network, on Community Network, and I will every time speak up and say, hey, you had several opportunities and you weren't there, you know? And it's like, you want to complain on the social media, but you weren't there. You weren't there. You need to show up. You need to show up and you need to voice your opinions when the work is being done, not after the fact. So it's very hard for the city employees to be able to move forward with things, and it's very discouraging working on a project when then everybody complains when it's done, when they had many opportunities to make that difference.
Well, on behalf of staff, we're encouraged that you all are here. You know, some new faces, and we appreciate everybody joining. And this isn't the first, and it's not the last time that we'll talk about this. And as Paul mentioned, you know, any questions, you know, email Paul or you know, you can look up any of us, and whether it's about the EIR or just the downtown specific plan process in general. And other than the public participation part, the other probably most frustrating part is that once the plan is adopted, you think things are going to happen overnight. It still takes 20 years to see things happen, as you spoke to earlier, after previous plan. So,
Plunge them first.
yeah,
I
well,
would talk to you about the lunch. I would love to talk to you. My kids are wonderful, and I love the lunch. I love any relationship, every lunch.
you'll hear more from us later. Thank you.
I don't know if you have my email, but haven't received any blasts from it. Can I give it to you?
Yeah, do you mind, yes, go ahead and write your email. Oh, no problem. I'm just trying to think, that I would like it to sign you up for our email blasts, or what the best way to do it is. But I will, follow up on this. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you for all the hard work.
No problem.
Specific to wildlife, so I was like, is there
Are you
wildlife?
here because of the flight?
Not because of it, but it was on my list. I typed like things, and I was looking at some bullet points, and I was like, where is the blue butterfly
We're
part?
hoping that if they redo the front grounds, that it can be native habitat, you know, we can have blue butterflies. You know,
I was here in November meeting.
okay, Laurel Wetlands has done a huge project. They're doing those 5 acres. It does not go well. Chevron has their component.
Did I see there was an article in
Has Ravello Beach has 2 big swaths of land from the street down to sand or beaches, you know, those diagonals down to the beach, which used to be all ice plant, like River Torrance. They ripped out all of that. We're right next to butterfly habitat.
Yeah, so you can
We're doing
just
some
travel
fly
anywhere.
half a mile.
We're smoking we're 2 buildings from downtown, but we're not.
I'm not.
Smoky's supposed to be all the way.
I'm not a
We're like the
I'm just
middle
saying.
Smoky